My childhood nightmares haunting my adult life. My name is Anna, and my life is a series of losses and gains. As a child, I suffered from my father's cruelty and then lost my mother. Later, I was in a car accident and lost my memory. But the worst happened when I met a man who reminded me of the one I hated the most. Now, having recovered my memories, I know that my life belongs only to me, and I am ready to fight for my future. I was born in a small town in the state of Michigan. My parents' names were Jeremy and Laura Carter. They were young and ambitious people. Dad worked as an engineer in a local factory, and Mom took care of me and Olivia, my older sister. We lived modestly, but at the time I thought we were happy. Things changed when I was a little girl. Dad started drinking, and his temper changed. He became more and more irritable and irascible. Mom tried to keep the peace in the family, but it was getting harder and harder. I was only 5 years old when Mom was diagnosed with cancer. It was a terrible blow to all of us. Mom fought the disease, but her strength gradually left her. During the last year of her life, she was often in the hospital, and during that time we were left in my dad's care. Dad, who had lost control of himself, began to take his anger out on us. He could yell at us for any little thing, punish us severely. It was especially hard on me because I was younger and weaker. Olivia always tried to protect me, but it wasn't easy. I remember when Daddy would come home drunk and make a scene. Mom would cry and beg him to calm down, but he wouldn't listen. Sometimes he'd hit Mom, and Olivia and I would hide in our room with our hands over our ears so we wouldn't hear the screams. It was scary. Sometimes Dad would direct his anger at us. If we did something wrong, he might raise his hand. Olivia tried to take all the blame to protect me. She was a real heroine to me. Those moments are forever etched in my memory. Even now, so many years later, I remember every detail of those horrible days. They left a deep trace in my soul, made me withdrawn and insecure. When Mom left us, Dad stopped paying attention to us altogether. He spent all his free time at the bar, coming home late at night drunk. Olivia and I tried to stay out of his sight, afraid he'd start yelling again, or worse, raise his hand. I grew up very withdrawn and shy. Socializing with other children was hard for me, so I preferred to spend time alone. My only joy was music. The piano, which was left to us from my mother, became my refuge. For hours on end, I would sit at it, playing melodies that reflected my feelings. It was the only place I could express what I was hiding inside. Olivia, my older sister, took on the role of elder. She took care of me, helped me with my homework, and protected me from bullying at school. Although it was hard for both of us, we supported each other. Our relationship was very warm despite all the difficulties. We tried not to draw too much attention to ourselves, especially when Dad was home. He could come in at any time and it was better to just stay in the shadows. We knew that at such times it was better not to disturb him or we might get hurt. That's how we lived our lives, trying to survive the horror. When I turned 18, I firmly decided it was time to leave our small town. I went to college in New York City, dreaming of starting a new life. Before I left, I told my father I was never coming back, and he grinned with a twist of his lips. Olivia, who was already a lawyer, helped me get a job and an apartment. She had an old 1994 Pontiac Bonneville, and she let me use it. It was my chance for a fresh start. Life in the big city was not easy. Everything was so huge, noisy, hectic. People were in a hurry to get somewhere, no one really noticed you. It was hard for me to communicate with new people. I was still the same reserved and shy girl from Michigan. But gradually I started to make new friends. Some of them were newcomers like me, some helped me to get used to this huge metropolis. One of my hobbies was photography. I started taking pictures of everything: streets, people, buildings. Each shot was a small window to a new world for me. I enrolled in photography courses to learn how to take better pictures. These classes helped me to express myself, to show what I felt but couldn't put into words. New York became a place where I could be different. No one here knew my past, no one saw what I was going through. I could be whoever I wanted to be, and it was an incredible freedom. It was an ordinary evening, like so many others. I was driving my car home after class. I had to pick up Olivia on the way. In the back seat was the camera I always took with me. Today's pictures had turned out especially well, and I was thinking about how to process them when I got home. My mind was spinning with plans, ideas, dreams. And suddenly everything turned upside down. And just as I was about to get to my meeting place with Olivia, everything turned upside down. The driver of the other car must have been drunk. He lost control of the car and slammed it right into my car at full speed. I remember only the bright light of the headlights that blinded me, then a thud and silence. The world froze and there was a ringing in my ears. Then pain so intense I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. My chest squeezed, my breath caught, and my eyes went black. The last thing I heard was the sound of an ambulance siren, but I didn't know what was happening. Slowly opening my eyes, I felt a throbbing pain in my head. Everything around me was blurry and unfamiliar. I was lying in a hospital room, surrounded by white walls and some strange medical equipment. The doctors' voices sounded muffled, as if through a thick layer of cotton blanket. "Are you all right?" the doctor asked, leaning over me. "How are you feeling?" I tried to answer, but my throat was dry. I looked at him, trying to figure out who he was and why I was here. Instead of an answer, a feeling of panic swept over me. I couldn't remember anything. Not my name or how I got here. The doctor explained that I had been in a car accident and suffered a head injury that resulted in amnesia. He said that my name was Anna Carter and that my sister Olivia was here by my side. Olivia entered the room holding a bouquet of flowers. When she saw me, she immediately walked over to the bed and hugged me tightly. "You're back," Olivia said, barely holding back tears of joy. "I'm so glad you're okay." I looked at her, trying to remember anything. But my mind was as blank as a blank sheet of paper. This moment was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I had to rediscover myself, to realize who I really was. And it was the most difficult challenge I had ever faced. After I was discharged from the hospital, I moved in with Olivia. We lived in a small, cozy house in upstate New York. Olivia worked as a lawyer and tried to pay as much attention to me as possible. She told me about our family, how we grew up in a small town in Michigan. What happened to our mom when we were very young. Dad was a harsh and demanding man. He often punished us for the slightest provocation, and his strictness left a deep trace in my soul. Olivia always tried to protect me, but sometimes it was impossible. Now Olivia was helping me learn to live again. We went shopping together, cooked dinner, watched old movies. I tried to get used to the new way of life, even though every day brought new questions and puzzles. Everything around me seemed unfamiliar, and I kept catching myself thinking that I was trying to remember something important, but nothing worked. Sometimes I sat down at the piano in the living room and played the melodies that my fingers remembered from my childhood. Music was the only thing that connected me to the past, and Olivia always kept me going. We talked about a lot of things, but I still felt lost, like a part of me was gone forever in that accident. As time went on, I met a young man on my way home from a walk one evening. His name was Andrew Burke. He was polite and attentive and offered to walk me home. At first I hesitated, but something about him caught my eye. Perhaps it was his confident demeanor or his friendly smile. Andrew started showing up around me a lot. We took walks together, went to the movies. He would often meet me after work and we would go to a cafe, sit and talk over a cup of coffee. I felt comfortable in his company. He seemed to me the perfect partner, kind, caring, understanding. We shared our dreams and plans for the future, and I felt like I had finally found someone who understood me. Olivia, however, was concerned. She saw our father in Andrew the same confidence, the same authority, and felt that something terrible might happen. She tried to warn me, to tell me that he might not be who he said he was. But I didn't want to listen. To me, Andrew was the only bright spot in this new life. I believed that he was real, that he loved me and wanted to take care of me. Over time, our relationship with Andrew grew closer. We spent more time together, and I began to believe that I had finally found my happiness. We planned trips together, discussed how we would celebrate the holidays, and I felt like I could trust him completely. But one night, I was late and arrived at his house later than usual. Andrew greeted me coldly. Suddenly his demeanor changed. His face became grim and his voice became harsh. He began to reproach me for my lack of attention to him, saying that I was too busy with my own affairs and not giving him enough time. I tried to explain that I had a lot of work and studies to do, but he didn't want to listen. He was very angry. He started yelling and raised his hand to hit me. At that moment, something inside me exploded. Pain, fear, and rage swept over me at the same time. Images from the past flashed before my eyes, scenes of violence, humiliation, maternal tears. The memories came flooding back, and I realized that Andrew wasn't who I thought he was. When I looked at him, I saw my father, the very man I had forgotten and never wanted to remember again. I felt a wave of anger and fear rise up inside me. Everything I had forgotten thanks to the amnesia came back to me in an instant. I realized that I had made a huge mistake in allowing this man into my life. Turning away from him, I pushed him away and ran out of his house. Back at Olivia's house, I admitted my mistake. My sister was supportive, helping me cope with my newfound memories. Slowly, I began to regain my strength, realizing who I really was. I realized that my life is my own choice and no one has the right to dictate to me how to live it. I decided to start over with the support of my sister and my new friends. I now knew that new challenges lay ahead of me, but I was ready to face them head-on. I looked forward to the future with hope. I knew that there were many opportunities ahead of me and I was ready to take advantage of each of them.